It's late night or early night, however you chose or choose to look at it. Earl Skakel here. This might be a 5-minute stream, or it might be a 7-hour stream. I go with the flow, and I just got done working out, getting prepared for my set tonight. I would say tomorrow night, but it's already Wednesday night. And I have a very special guest who's going to see me perform stand-up comedy tomorrow night. One of the great mid 90s, late 90s, 2000 tough guys is in town. The great Jeff Odgers, aka Freddy Krueger, will be in attendance tomorrow night or tonight at the Comedy Store. So I'm excited to check that out. And Jason, what up? What up? I was just feeling it, just worked out. It's probably the worst time in the world, Jason, to do a live stream, but I had so much fun last night, almost a 3-hour stream. I thought, maybe I'll do a 15 to 20-minute stream tonight. It's really morning right now for me. Los Angeles time, it's 12:17 in the AM. What up, Catherine? I know a lot of my fans are East Coast, so I don't expect too many numbers. But here's the funny thing, like on TikTok, when I do a live, thank you. Thank you, Jason. When I do a live on TikTok at this time, I get like a couple hundred people watching. Now it goes up and down, but when I do a TikTok live, say um, 2, 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon my time, so 7, 5, 6, 7 East Coast time, I'm lucky if I get 10 people. So I'm still trying to figure out the algorithm, but I'm having fun with this. Basically, the long-term goal isn't to rake people over the coal for super chat money. It's to really build up more of a following. I'm the first person to admit that I should be more known than I am. I don't mean famous. I just mean, I should have more of a presence outside of Los Angeles. So I'm trying, doing all kinds of little things, and it's a work in progress still. But I don't mind doing it. I still have fun doing stand up, and like right now we have 4 people. That's a lot for me. Kevin Brennan, he has, I don't know, close to 1,000 most times. Melton has anywhere from 6 to 800. Chad is probably anywhere from 4 to 600. And then there's little old me clocking in at 4. But I'd rather have just 4 people in here and, have a good time, no drama, no name calling, no trolling. Yeah, super chats help, but I'm not going to do it. Uh, I've said this before, but the one thing I think that super chats have really fucked up is that every podcast, every stream. I mean, I guess this isn't technically a podcast; it's just a stream. It's turned into like online panhandling. Like, give me money, give me money. I won't answer your question. Um, but it is a nice way for a stand-up comic like myself to supplement your income so you don't have to take every shit road gig you're offered. I mean, I was offered a gig just to show you what I uh, go up against when I'm offered stuff. It was a roast in San Diego at a comedy club that's never once returned my email. And I realize I'm not a big name, but I'm a name enough where you can at least return my email and just say, hey, we're not interested. We're booked for the next 6 months. Lie to me. And then they needed a roaster. Like they're having a roast for, I think, some sportscaster or something that's retiring. So they offered me $200 and hotel for the night. Let me put it into perspective. I drive a Jeep to go to San Diego and back. That's about, depending on traffic, and now with the 10 influx right now. For those of you who don't know, there's a fire on the 10 freeway last Saturday. The 10 freeway is shut down in the most crowded part you can shut it down in. So I will say to get to San Diego and back, it's really anywhere from 7 to 9 hours. So a 7 to 9 hour drive, I'm going to have to fill up my Jeep 2 to 3 times, at least twice. That's $70 in gas. So 140 out of that $200 is um, going to gas. Food will be paid for, but like, so that's why getting like super chat money or Patreon and whatnot, that's why it's cool because you don't have to take that gig. Um, who do they take? Well, I mean, I called out someone in chat last night. They're like, I'd send you money, but I don't have any way to send it to you. Now, they brought it up, not me. So I said, all right, my PayPal is eskakel@aol.com. And then they're like, I don't have PayPal. Well, you know, okay. My first car was a bright red four-cylinder BMW 318i. Now, and I've often thought if I ever see that car on the street, I'm going to buy it because I really tricked it out. But man, that car was slow as shit. Four cylinders. But it was my very first car, and for 1986, it was a pretty sweet car. My mom, you guys probably know this, but I'll repeat this story for those of you who don't. My mom made me a deal that if I don't drink till I'm 18, she would get me the car of my choice. Within reason, of course. I'm not talking a Ferrari or a Porsche or whatever. Uh, so she took me down to BMW Ocean Motors in Santa Monica. Salesman walks me into a warehouse. Now, at the time, it seemed like hundreds of cars. It's literally a dark room with hundreds of cars. There was probably 100 cars, 50 to 100, but it just seemed like everywhere you looked, there was a new car. And he just looks at me and goes, pick. And I just, well, I'll take that one. It's a bright red BMW. Now, the funny thing is, my mom was too nervous to drive with me back home. And we lived in Bel Air at the time. So from Santa Monica to semi deep into Bel Air, 5 to 7 miles. So she takes a cab. I drive home. Car's smoking about halfway there. Looks like a Kiss concert's being performed in my trunk. I get home. My dad's like, "What the fuck's going on?" I'm like, "I don't know. It's a new car. I've never had a car before." And he looks in the inside, and I was driving with the emergency brake on the whole time. Hello. I like my Jeep. I mean, I'm coming off of a Hellcat, so it was definitely a different vibe, different ride. But I like all the cars I've had. I mean, I think I can name my cars in order. First car was a BMW, then I got a bright red Jeep for 6 months, but the top was too hard to take on and off, so I traded it in for a black Mustang. Pretty fast car at the time. It was like 91. And then I think around 94, I got a Ford Expedition. It was a fucking boat. Um, and then after that, I got a Dodge Magnum. I had that for about 7, 8 years. Then I traded that in for a Dodge Hellcat. And I've had the Jeep the last 2.5 years, and I now have to trade it in, I think, in 4 months. I have no idea what I'm getting. I have to kind of start looking around. What I do is I live in West Hollywood, as you guys know. There is a Thousand Oaks Auto Mall, so it's a bit of a drive. Probably about if I go now, it's like a 45-minute drive. If you go in the daytime, it's an hour and a half. And usually, I'll take Lois there, and we just walk around, and I look at all the new cars. So great story about your first car, Earl. Do you realize how much I love Danish and O'Neill? I have never driven a DeLorean. It's very rare to see them on the streets. There's because the problem with having a DeLorean or any car like that, like a Fiat or a Thunderbird. You remember those new Thunderbirds Chrysler pumped out maybe 10 years ago? They kind of look really cool, but um, especially with a DeLorean, there's nowhere to get them serviced. I mean, I guess you could go into any mechanic. An oil change is an oil change, but like, a DeLorean is, you know, a very specific car, I guess. So you'd have to get special parts, and I wouldn't trust many mechanics with if I had a DeLorean. Um, but yeah, I've got to. If I had a home, I'd probably get an electric car. Because when I went to the Pittsburgh Steelers game in Vegas, the manager from the Comedy Store, he drove because he's a Steeler fan as well, and he has a high-end Tesla, and it's impressive what Teslas do. The one thing that sucks though is if you drive a Tesla really fast or you drive it hard, it makes sense, but I didn't really calculate this. The more charges you have to do, so um, to go to Vegas, um, if you're driving like 100, you hit those pockets like around Zizix where you can, gun it. You got to charge it like, I don't know, 3 to 4 times there, 3 to 4 times coming back. At that point, I'd rather just fill it up with gas. I mean, I guess it's the same thing with gas. The faster you drive, the more gas or the heavier the load is in your car. You have to put more gas in. But man, it just took a long time. And sometimes, like on the way there, I think it's called Davy's Donuts. It's like a huge mini mart, but it's big. It's like the Walmart of you know Wawas or mini marts or Circle K's it's like a gigantic 7-Eleven. Um, we had to charge it there, and it was so hot. It was probably at least 105. So I don't think I'll get an electric car. But if I had a home, I might get an electric car and then have a gas car. I think an electric car would be cool for city driving. But if you had to, like, say, drive to Vegas or Arizona, I would definitely want a gas car. When was the last time I was in the Pacific Ocean? Man, that's a good question. Oh boy, I think probably 15 years ago. I remember I was at the beach with my girlfriend at the time, Gail, who is Lois's mom. and she was on the beach, and I went out to paddle. I think we were at somewhere between Santa Monica and Venice Beach, probably closer to Santa Monica Beach, and, I got caught in a tide, and, hello, Rebel, the uncanny. Thank you. Yeah, come on in. I don't know how long this one's gonna be, but, I just felt like talking for a little bit. And it was the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life, scarier than airplane turbulence, scarier than I mean, I haven't been in too many car wrecks, but, like, it was absolutely frightening. I got caught in this tide, and it was the most powerless feeling I've ever had in my life. I literally was being pushed out, um, to I don't know where. Like, I was being pushed out away from the shoreline, and Gail kept yelling at me, and I was so far away from her at one point, I think she thought I was just doing this to, I don't know, catch a wave or something, and, because the lifeguards I mean, it was like I was powerless, and then I think I was trying to paddle straight ahead, like, straight to the shoreline, and the lifeguard, like, I think it was literally too far for him to swim out to, uh, he told me I could barely hear him. He kept going side, side, and I didn't. I was fucking scared. Like I was. I'm not gonna lie and say I was in shock, but like I was starting to get really scared. Like I didn't think I was gonna die or anything, but and he was telling me don't swim straight ahead. Like I was on a boogie board, more or less go that way, and you'll swim out of the tide, I guess. And he was right. It still took me some doing. But so that was I want to say 2008. Um, yes, I mean the ocean. Probably the most well. I mean, outside of my ACL injury, I don't know how close I was to getting a broken neck, but I remember, my two brothers could have been pro surfers. They were very, very, very good at surfing, and of course, I'd always tag along. And I'm pale white, except when I was in my I think around 89 to 91, I was dating a girl who worked at a tanning salon. So like that was when I was like almost unrecognizable. I was so tan, but now I'm like pale white. So I never really liked going to the beach all that much. But I was a decent boogie boarder. Um, and then one time I caught a pretty big wave. Now, I don't mean like Jerry Lopez or Laird Hamilton style wave, but it's probably a 6 foot wave, which isn't in Santa Monica. That's a big wave. Um, and it flipped me over. And I remember being upside down and my neck hit the sandbar. And I literally heard my neck crunching. But, I was very lucky, because I've known some people, my friend, Phil Perrier, a great, great comic, he was, temporarily paralyzed. Literally the same thing happened. He was, I don't know if he was surfing or body surfing and just, you know, the wave took me under, and I can remember the visual sensation of, like, it was like being caught in a tornado, and it was just I was being thrashed around. I was probably at my most muscular at that time, I'm 6'1", 200 pounds, but fucking jacked. And I felt like a toothpick. So I'm very lucky. Oh damn, that sucks. Earth sucks. That sucks. I know your pain. I had a horrific knee to knee hit playing hockey in '91 where literally I was coming around the boards, the defenseman had pinched, and the puck was like right in between us. So it was an inevitable collision. And he was about 5'10", 170. And back then I was probably around the same time the surf thing happened. I was 6'1", 200, but thick. Like I was a bowling ball back then in '91. So I was what was I in '91? So I would have been 23 years old. So, I'm big now at 55, like muscular or solid, but 23 years old, Earl, I was like a big boy. And not even really that muscular. I'm just big boned. So we collide, and like this is his knee, this is my knee, and bam, and my knee literally went like that way. And I heard it pop instantly. And it felt like a rubber band that broke in my knee. But I was so strong back then. I mean, I was squatting 600 pounds and natural too. No roids, nothing. I mean, I took creatine and that shit, but like all natural. And so I finished the game. I actually scored. It hyperextended, but the wrong way. Um, Finished the game, scored a goal. Uh, And so it was sore after the game, but I limped to my car, but I thought I was just whatever. Got home that night, went out to eat. I think I had a date, and then got up the next morning. Or I should say I didn't get up. I literally couldn't move. I had to crawl to the bathroom to, do that. I fell trying to get up. I was living on the 11th floor of this building, and I crawled to the elevator, crawled to my car, and the security guy was like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Just leave me alone." He was trying to help, but I think I was starting to realize, "Oh, fuck." And I couldn't feel my knee. I would say from the bottom of my kneecap to the top of my kneecap, but on the back part, it was numb. I couldn't feel it. So I literally looked in the yellow pages in the lobby of my building, and Joseph Nicolella. He was the Raiders doctor. Now, I didn't know that at the time, but so I parked my car outside his office and literally fell out of my car. And a cop was driving by. He probably thought I was on drugs or something. Stops the car. He's like, "What's wrong, man?" I'm like, "Oh man, I played hockey. I fucked up my knee. I'm trying to get to the doctor over there." And then he starts picking me up. I'm like, "Yeah, but I got to put money in the meter." And he's like, "I'll do it. Don't worry about it." And the guy looks at my knee, and I think, oh, I felt good. Like when I walked in, I saw these Raider autographed pictures and Super Bowl trophies or whatever. Not Super Bowl trophies, but they were like platinum awards from the Raiders for his service. And he's like, "Yeah, you probably just pulled the ligament and you have some bone chips. You'll be all right. Bone chips will pass through you, at some point. And if they don't, we can just suck them out down the road." And I would say he gave me I was on crutches for about 3 weeks, and then slowly but surely, I started playing hockey that same season. And then so that's 1991, and then what was it? About 2004, I started getting these excruciating pains on the sides of my, right leg. It was like someone was stabbing me with 2 needles. So I go to the doctor, a different doctor this time, Beverly Hills Orthopedic, the great Dr. Barry Breaker. So he's feeling my knees, like it's definitely unstable. You probably have a torn ACL. Yeah, I mean, it. I mean, it's painful whenever I see a football player or a hockey player and they get a knee hit or their knee goes into the boards and I'm like, man, and I know exactly what they just felt. And so he takes an X-ray, comes back in. They just now he had a delivery and a sarcasm that makes me look happy-go-lucky. And he's like, you don't have an ACL, right? I'm like, what? And he shows me the picture, and like my right knee looked like literally like a bowl of spaghetti blew up. Now, an ACL is about the size of the white part of this pen. So, you know, like that. My leg literally had like that. So we put a cadaver. Now you got to understand, in the mid '90s and even in the early 2000s, I was still squatting 600 pounds. So it's insane to me that I was doing that much work with no ACL. I mean, that's unheard of, even for a pro athlete. Um, but so they have a cadaver ACL put in my leg, grafts in. It's arthroscopic surgery, thank God. I mean, that's why you see guys from the '70s who had torn ACLs. They're fucking, they have like a 12-inch scar down their leg. I mean, my God, I mean, it's amazing what the technological advancements in surgery. And then the doctor said, you won't be the same for basically 2 years. You'll cry at the end of your first rehab session because you literally won't be able to move your leg an inch, but I'll get you through it. And literally, I remember on the rehab table the first day, I did start to well up because they have you sit on the edge of the table and you're just supposed to do a leg extension with just your leg, no weights, nothing. And I literally couldn't. You could have promised me I could fuck 10 playmates in the next office if I could move my leg 2 inches. And I couldn't. But, I did all the rehab to the T. And sure enough, about 2 years later, I felt almost as strong, maybe stronger than I was before the injury. Because I've had some of my friends that I played hockey with in that league. Uh, they had the ACL surgery and they didn't do any of the rehab, and they're basically cripples. My one friend Chris was one of the best players in the league. I mean, this guy was just a great player, just a natural skill set. He didn't never really practice, partied like Ozzy Osbourne levels of partying, and he didn't do any. He had the surgery, but he did none of the rehab, and you know, just as you have to do it. I get it before I forget. Who is the best crowd work comedian today? It's really two guys, both comedy store guys, Rick Ingram and Ian Bagg. It's those two and everybody else. Um, yeah, I mean, when Earth sucks, I'm just going back a little bit and check because that story took a long time. Uh, like when I see hockey hits specifically, knee to knee hits, I just know exactly the sound. It's a little pop, and then it's a little like that sound. Why the hockey locker room equipment smells so bad? Well, unfortunately, like gloves, they don't really have moisture wicking material inside the gloves. So, if you're Alexander Ovechkin and you sweat as much as he does, your gloves are going to smell maybe after 3 or 4 usages. And you can't really wash the insides of hockey gloves. You could put Febreze down there, or what I used to do when, sometimes I was superstitious and I would have like a pair of gloves I really liked. But, after a while, the stink would get pretty stinky. I would put fabric softener sheets in them, and that helped a little bit. Um, but there's just like the amount, I don't think people realize, hockey players like at the NHL level probably lose easily from 2 to 6 pounds of water weight. In a recreational league, you're probably losing about the same. I did have a Branches hockey stick. I think they were really the first stick company that came out with a super hard shaft, like Easton and Coho, CCM. Their sticks had a lot of bend to them, but Branches, I remember it was a very rare company for a while. I think Igor Larionov, he might have been an investor in it because it was a big deal that he used it. And I think I had a friend of mine who was an equipment guy, and he hooked me up with it wasn't a Larionov stick, but it was just like a sample stick or something he got me. And it was one of the more durable hockey sticks I've ever used. I mean, the only other stick I would say, hey, we got 9 people in this thing. Maybe late night is the time for me. Um, the only stick that was comparable in terms of durability is the Boston Bruins had an equipment sale one year, and thank you, Earl. Yeah, I mean, I realize that the market for late night is limited. You know, it's what time is it? It's 12:45 in LA, so it's almost 4 in the morning in New York and Canada and certain parts. So, I'm just fucking around with the algorithm. But I bought a game used but in still playable conditions, the Dano Chara stick. Now I like my sticks very tall. Like basically, I'm 6'1". My sticks literally go to the top of my head, like to my hairline. Um, so when I got Chara's stick, it was literally probably over my like it was probably there. So I had to chop it down 3 to 4 inches, but it was such a his hands are so big that it was almost I think it was obviously special made for him, like an octagonal, like an eight-sided shape. I've never seen a stick like this. So, um, but probably the weirdest stick I have, it's right over there. I'm too lazy to go get it, but is Artur's Kaliev's stick because he played tennis as a child. So he literally has, I'm looking at the butt end of his stick. It's easily a roll and a half of tape on the top part of the stick. Because he said it, I think he said it reminds him of his tennis days. I like the Minnesota North Stars logo. I used to have a really cool pair of Minnesota North Star Furland gloves, and then someone stole them at the rink I was playing at, and then the next week they wore them to a game, and I'm sitting there going, "You can't be that fucking stupid." And I'm like, "Bro, those are my gloves." He's like, "No, they're not." I said, "Let me see the insides," because I put ES, and sure enough, there was ES, but he tried to erase it. And the son of a bitch put a hole in the palm to make it look like they were worn. Yeah, I like the Hartford Whalers uniform, the green one, the early green one they used to wear. Pokey Reddick, uh, one of the, I think maybe the only goalie in NHL history with Jerry curls. Uh, he had a nice run in the mid '80s, early '90s. Some great African American goaltenders. Obviously, Grant Fuhrer, Kevin Weeks. I think there was one or two others. Diarrhea Brown Connect. I like the Harold Schneps, um, the Darth Vader jerseys, I guess they call them. I'm out of the collecting business, but if I ever saw a game worn Michel Petit, Vancouver Canucks Darth Vader yellow jersey that he bought Bob Probert in, that'd be a cool jersey to frame. Uh, it's a good thing I'm not a hockey scout because when Michel Petit, I think the Canucks drafted him. I might be off either ninth or 11th in the first round. And I thought this guy's going to be a star. He's a big guy. He could hit. He could fight. He could score. And he ended up literally playing, I think, on 11 or 12 teams. Like it was crazy. He just every 2 years he'd be on another team. Let me see the Nordiques. I love the Nordiques. By the way, tomorrow night, ex-Atlanta Thrasher Jeff Odgers will be in attendance at my show at the Comedy Store, so I'm very excited about that. We're going to take a picture by my name on the wall. Jeff Odgers would fight anybody. I was just watching some of his fights on YouTube. Man, he could take a beating. Like he would take on Eric Cairns, who was 6'6", 250, and Jeff Odgers probably maybe my size, 6 feet, 180. But It's like a slightly bigger version of George McPhee, the GM of the Vegas Golden Knights. I went to a Thrashers game. I'll never forget. It was in a really bad part of town too. I was so it was the Thrashers and the Boston Bruins, and yeah, that was they did the same thing with the Florida Panthers. Their first couple years, I think they play like pretty close to Liberty City or Overtown in Miami, and that's like where the riots were. I always found it funny, and it's a joke I used to do on stage that the Atlanta Thrashers. Now, I don't know if this was done on purpose or it was just coincidence, but they would draft or trade for African American players. And I thought this is brilliant because it's basically in an urban market. And then they moved the team to Winnipeg. Excuse me. And I don't think there were 9 black people in Winnipeg, let alone on a hockey team. Because you had like Evander Kane, you had Dustin Bufflin, you had Johnny Oduya, Jean-Luc Grandpierre, uh, and I think 1 or 2 other guys when they moved to Winnipeg, and then they slowly got traded or left. That was where I first became aware of the great Ilya Kovalchuk, um, and I was really excited when the Kings got him, and it just didn't work out. He still could score, but he was maybe not the most defensively responsible player in his tenure with the Kings. Um, and it was weird. He was my neighbor. Like he lived in Beverly Hills. You know, I thought that was pretty funny. How many hockey players live in Beverly Hills? But then it hit me. He probably liked it. Like he could walk down Rodeo Drive naked and nobody would know who he is. So it's like weird. Like would Connor McDavid rather play in Los Angeles, where he could walk to the mall or drive to the mall and be in relative anonymity, or does he like it in Edmonton where it's a fucking fishbowl and he probably can't even go to the gas station without taking pictures, signing autographs? Uh, oh, that's a tough one. Jimmy Carson. No, he just wasn't around long enough. His first 2 years, he's probably the greatest first 2 year king ever. I think he had like 50 goals his first year and then like 45 the second year. And obviously we traded him for Gretzky. But I will say one time I was in the Kings locker room and probably his must have been his second year. And obviously players are naked in the locker room, and Jimmy Carson might have had the worst body of any pro athlete I've ever seen. Like no muscle definition, skinny legs, which is weird because most hockey players have thunder thighs and calves that like look like they were diamond cut. He had a bit of a belly. I mean, he wasn't fat, but he definitely didn't do any sit ups. It's also weird you could have a belly and do all the cardio they do, and like I was talking about, earlier, like just the cardio and the weight, the water loss that hockey players uh, go through. Like, and his chest was concave. He had literally no shoulders and a gooseneck. I'm like, how is this guy one of the best players in the league? And then Mark Hardy walked by, and Mark Hardy was about maybe 5'10", but had like a bodybuilder's body. Like, I don't know if it was natural or he worked out. Like some guys don't even work out. And, I used to work with a black dude named Lenny at the Sports Connection in Santa Monica. And this guy had the greatest body I've ever seen of anyone on planet Earth. Just a bicep peak of Tom Platz or Barry DeMay, the flexing Dutchman. Never worked out. I said, "Dude, how do you get those arms like that?" Here I am killing it for 2, 3 hours in the gym at that time. He's like, "I don't work out. Never have and never will." Better defenseman, Buka Boom or Coffee? Well, I mean, it's definitely, I would say Paul Coffey. But if you needed a 3rd or 4th defenseman for some physical series, I would rather have Buka Boom. And I named a dog after Buka Boom. Looked just like him too, skinny, fucked up teeth, cross-eyed. Um, and then people ask me what my favorite playoff series of all time is. Now, you'd think I would say the LA Kings, some capacity, um, but I can't get enough of the 95, 96 Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Philadelphia Flyers when the Flyers had a prime Lindros, a prime John LeClair, Renberg, the Legion of Doom, Hextall in his prime, arguably, and the Tampa Bay Lightning unleashed the three-headed monster of Michel Petit, Igor Ulanov, and the great Lionheart Rudy Poshek. And it was just a six-game series. It was just insane. Like, it was jungle hockey, headbutts, knee-to-knee hits, hits from behind, you know, sticks to the face, uh, Lindros butt-ended Petit in the face in the corner right in front of the ref. I mean, like, right in front of the ref, and, the ref just looked at him, like, broken nose, blood everywhere. And then the next period, it was at Gavey. Aaron Gavey did the same thing to Lindros, right at center ice. So at both refs, I think it was one ref and two linesmen back then. They saw it. I mean, Lindros had the puck. No call. I mean, it was. Look at night. If you go on YouTube, I think it's Lightning Flyers rough stuff. It's amazing to watch. Um, most of the games, highlights of it. It was a six-game series. Philly won 4-2, but just an amazing battle. Um, so that you think my favorite playoff series would be the Kings. Maybe when the Kings beat the Oilers. The miracle on Manchester. Did Al Iafrate have the hardest slap shot? I mean, in the history of the game, I think. Well, they didn't really measure like Bobby Hull. I mean, I think Zdeno Chara. Well, Martin Frk, if you count AHL players, I believe he had, I want to say, 109 at the All Star game. And he was on the Kings for a little bit. I mean, his shot was just insane. Um, but it never really translated to the NHL, you know. Um, I mean, so if you don't really count Martin Frk because he didn't play enough games in the NHL, I would say, I mean, Al McGinnis, especially when you consider he used a wood stick. I mean, that's wackadoon. Sheldon Surrey had a big shot. Um, obviously Brett Hull, Kaliev of the Kings. He has, I don't know if it's the hardest shot, but it's very hard. Um, I mean, Iafrate's up there, for sure. And he used the wood stick too. I mean, I can't. Chara, I think, it had a couple 103-mile-an-hour slap shots. Shea Weber had, I think, 106 in one of the All Star games. Um, so, I mean, I would say if you take Martin Frk out of it, just for lack of games played, the five hardest shots in league history, probably Bobby Hull, Al McGinnis, Zdeno Chara, Shea Weber, and Brett Hull. And it's scary to think that if you gave Bobby Hull's and Dano Chara's, not his stick, but like his stick, but for his size, like he might, he might hit it at 120 miles an hour. Kind of like the tennis player. I think one of the hardest serves still to this day is Roscoe Tanner, and he uses or he used a wood racket. So I can only imagine if you gave Roscoe like a prime Roscoe Tanner, like a graphite friend's racket that, I don't know, Nadal uses, like, he might hit it 150 miles an hour. No, I don't hate the Red Wings. I don't hate any teams really. I'm just a King fan. I mean, I grew up a Ranger fan because I got their games on cable, and I was fascinated by Barry Beck, who at the time was, the biggest player in the league. I mean, I think next to Clark Gillies and I guess Willie Huber. And I just became obsessed with Beck, and so I because we didn't get the King games a lot on TV. They just, for whatever reason, they weren't on television a lot. So we got the Ranger games. We got WOR, and Beck had a hard shot. I can only imagine how hard his shot would have been with a graphite Easton, uh, stick. No, I never did. Never wore. And one guy lost a ball in our league, in our ball hockey league, because ball hockey, what they do is they take those orange Milek balls in our league and they would freeze them overnight. So they were rock hard. I mean, because the minute you played with them out, it was an outdoor rink. They'd get pretty soft, so we froze them to keep them as hard as we could. And I think my wrist shot. Hello, Ben Jones in the house. Jones. My wrist shot was clocked at 83 miles an hour. So, because some guy had a radar gun, so we were just fucking around one night. Boing, 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 boing. So my slap shot, uh, the one time they brought it out and I shot slappers, it was malfunctioning, but I would guess Rick Zombo, number 4, with the nose. He had the beak. Um, I'm excited. Like I said, if you guys are just tuning in tomorrow night or tonight at the Comedy Store, the great tough guy Jeff Odgers will be in attendance at my show. I'm excited to meet him, aka Freddy Krueger. Zombo was a tough guy. He had a few fights. Um, Stu Grimson had a very hard shot. He would always finish in the top of the Kings individual skill competition. I don't think he ever made the All Star game for the hardest shot, but it's all technique. I used to my slap shot, Ron Duguay. I see. Used to date my friend. I snuck into the Forum Club ahead of him one night. Forum Club was like a nightclub at the Forum, and so I got in there, and then he's like, "Hey, I used to play on the Kings," and the guy's like, "I don't give a fuck." And I just looked down, I'm like, "Sorry, brother." He was a great player. The Kings could have drafted him. It's crazy. The Kings teams in the late '70s, they were owned by Jack Kent Cooke, and he owned the Redskins when they had that Over the Hill gang, and he was obsessed with veteran players. Like I remember once we traded, I think the 10th overall pick for Rick Martin, who was a great player for Buffalo, but he was definitely at the end of the rope. And he played 4 games for the Kings. Now, there's no guarantee the Kings would have picked who the Sabres picked, but who did the Sabres pick? Tom Barrasso. We could have drafted Ron Duguay, but we traded someone to the Rangers, and we gave them that pick that they picked Duguay. We could have had Ray Bork. Uh, we traded someone to Boston, and with that pick, we traded a pick to Boston for someone that didn't pan out, and they took Ray Bork. We traded Larry Murphy for Ken Houston. That may be the worst trade in NHL history, although some people would argue it would be um, Mats Naslund for Alex Stoyanov. I mean, that's Alex Stoyanov. I thought this guy's the next Bob Probert. He was a big, big dude, like 6'4", 6'5", good hands, could fight, and man, he didn't pan out at all. What porn star have you seen in person who looks great? Really none of them, to be honest with you. I mean, without the makeup and shit, like, and their hair done, well, it ain't pretty. Uh, like, I mean, I would say I gotta be honest with you, none of them. Now I'm not a big porn fan, to be honest with you, so, but, when you see them on film getting porked, they got base makeup on, foundation, makeup over that, hair and they got body makeup on, so their bodies don't look that good. Um, so Tony McKegney, one of the great early African American players in the '80s with, what was it, Ray Neufeld and, Graham Townsend, and then, later on, Mike Greer and others. Uh, oh, good. That's the whole point, man. So, yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't really watch porn, but like, I've seen Jenna Jameson in person. It's like, man, what the fuck did you? I mean, how do you go from one of the most beautiful women in the world to looking like Brett Michaels? Um, just sad. I've never seen plastic surgery make anyone look better, ever. Not one person said, "Okay, they look better." But who am I to sit there and tell people, what, if they think it makes them look better, then hey, they look better. I've had plastic surgery. I had skin cancer here and here, so you can see. Oh, I mean, this isn't like a super high resolution camera, although it is a relatively new iMac. But so I've had plastic surgery to minimize the scarring. So I don't know. I mean, I never really got close enough to smell them. I mean, really, the only one that I think smelled was Ron Jeremy. But when you're raping as many people as he was, you do work up a sweat. Um, it's a sad world, the world of porn. You know, you go in there and you think, oh, someone will discover me and I'll start doing main films. And once you do porn, the stigmas, you can't shake it. Tracy Lords got pretty close to shaking the stigma, but she'll always be known as the underage girl who did porn. And she got in, I think, the John Waters film, was it Cry Baby? But I mean, that was a little before my time. Her sucks. I mean, I only met Mitzi once, and she was very sick when I met her. So it's not like a regret because I definitely shouldn't have been passed when she was well because I just wasn't a very funny comic. But from what I hear, you got to think back in the '70s and '80s, she was absolutely the most powerful woman in comedy. And you're in a male-dominated business, so you have every male comic who would fuck you in 2 seconds to get a spot or to get a showcase, and she knew that. So I can imagine the god complex that she must have had. I mean, and I couldn't blame her. I mean, can you imagine? Like, I can't imagine if I was in, say, a fashion business where it was a female dominated business, but I was like the only successful male. So female models knew, hey, we got to fuck this guy to get spots or to get good ad campaigns or whatever. So yeah, yeah. I mean, Ari and Don were there a little bit before me. So yeah, I mean, Meg Ryan, who was Renee Zellweger. I mean, Courtney Cox was okay. Uh, oh yeah, yeah. I don't know. Cleveland Meadows. That's Dabbleverse talk. We don't do that here, Jason. You know better than that. But yeah, I mean, it's just. I mean, look at Courtney Cox in the spring "Dancing in the Dark" video. I mean, that's like, wow, man. I'm just kidding, Jason. You can talk about it. I'm just kidding. I try to avoid talking about it just because it's such a negative and toxic thing. I just like I don't want any part of that world. Um, Even though I do some like MLC episodes, or I'll call in Melton show from time to time, but it's really like, some guy last week. wished I got bone cancer because I didn't vote for Ray. That's when I like, okay, I'm checking out of this. This ain't for me, this world. But that's why I am trying to, have a niche with this stream of people who are just sick of the Dabbleverse world. Because it's so fucking repetitive. How many times can you call Stuttering John a stutterer, Chad a drunk, or, you know, whatever. Yeah, but I blocked his wish, bro. You're good. I don't know what that means. Can I get that in English, brother? Uh, you know, I mean, to wish bone cancer on someone you've never met before, and they were serious. Like I read the tweet, it was like, "Oh my god, this guy is a lot of anger." Like you could say I'm not funny, and that's fun. Comedy is subjective, but to wish cancer on someone's crazy. But bone cancer, I had a friend of mine who died of bone cancer. It ain't pretty. Might be the second worst form of cancer next to pancreatic cancer. Yeah, I mean, I just, like Carl from Who Are These Podcasts, he took most of the meat off that bone, and then Shuley took whatever was left. And, I don't tell anyone how they should do their business, but, I just don't find Stuttering John all that interesting. I mean, and this isn't like, I don't mean this in like a roast way, but I don't think he realizes that. And I think Kevin was talking about this a little bit today, but it's not like he was on the shows. He was like the Tonight Show and Stern because he was like such a brilliant writer, performer. It's just he stuttered, so it was great to goof on. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but like if he doesn't stutter, he's not on those shows. But and then now I think people are trying to turn Perry into some star, but Perry's been doing this shit for 25 years. It's time to move on from Perry. It's old. It's kind of sad. You see that Tom guy like exploiting him, and like I don't get it. Uh, I like Shuey. I mean, I worked with him on the Ric Flair roast, and him and Tyler Morrison had the two best sets that night. Um, oh, I get what you're saying, Jason. My favorite sandwich. I love a good peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So simple, but like when it's done right, it's a grilled cheese when it's done right. A panini maybe, which is grilled cheese with some chicken when that's done right. Um, like I like simple foods. Like you'd think peanut butter and jelly, but like if you get a good high quality peanut butter and I mean jelly's jelly, I guess, but a good bread, that makes me happy, and it's relatively healthy for you. I mean, the peanut butter has a lot of sugar in it, and obviously the jelly does too. But sugar you burn off pretty fast. Um, well, I think what I do like about Kevin is he's authentic. I mean, that's who he is. That's not an act. Um, but I just like Shuli has created a whole network that's based off of Stuttering John. That's impressive. I went on. I think I did a few episodes of Miserable Men, and I think after the second one where we broke down that John being interviewed by that weird looking guy, I was like, I think I told Shuli in a text or DM, like, dude, I got nothing left. I'm John. I'm gonna tap out respectfully. And I don't like all the online, Chad going after Steel Toe going after Chad. Who are these podcasts going after? I don't know, Kevin, and then Kevin going after Melton, Melton going after Chad. I don't do the online roasting. You want to roast me? roast me to my face. Not so I can fight you, but just, because I find people, they're not so brave when you're in front of them. Well, I get it though. I mean, I get the soap opera aspects of it. I mean, Kevin, I think, is the smartest one out of us all because, like, I don't like being trolled. It's just like, I got to respect you to care about what you have to say about me. But Kevin's like, oh, you don't think I'm funny? You want to say something about Neil being funnier than me? $5. So he's got his fans, and he's got probably an equal amount of trolls, and that's why he has 900 Patreon people and whatever he makes in super chats. Like it's impressive, uh, elegant. I love Boschetti. I mean, I didn't like how he just voted for Chad because he's like, I just feel sorry for him. But it's Boschetti. I get it. Not really a fan of William Montgomery. I just think it's one note. It gets old after. For me, it gets old after 5 minutes. Um, but he was really disrespectful to paid regulars at the Comedy Store when Kill Tony was there. Because when Kill Tony was on Monday nights in the main room or the belly room for a while, he'd do his thing up there, and that's fine. He's a part of the show. But then he would come down and like heckle me and other comics during the Monday night is basically an open mic for paid regulars. If you're a paid regular, you can sign up and you get to go on. And a lot of times, it's a big list, and so people are waiting for hours and hours. And when he would heckle people, it would like really prolong the evening. And I got into his face one night and said, "Hey, man, Kill Tony's over. Your time is over here until next Monday. I'm waiting to go on. By you heckling the guy in front of me and him having to deal with you, that makes my stay here a little longer." Um, and he was drinking back then quite a bit, so he was very, very obnoxious. But we kind of made up in Austin, I think, about a year ago. He apologized, and I'm like, "Dude, it's cool, but like, I hope you know why I got upset." Um, Elegant Elliot off, and boy, I haven't heard that name in quite a while. I don't recall liking him that much. Well, I mean, listen, I'm sure a lot of people don't think I'm funny. But I think what William, I don't know his style of comedy now, but back then, he would just yell out weird stuff about his uncle, and it was funny for about 5 minutes, and then it was very one note, you know. But well, I don't, in his defense, and here I'm defending the guy. He was too drunk to realize what he was doing was like really annoying, and you know at the Comedy Store, it's a very respectful place if you're a paid regular, like, that's part of the perk of being a paid regular is you don't get fucked with, and, I think Kill Tony at that time, and from what I understand now, definitely now, is giving some comics they're a little more important than they actually are. um, because, and I say that as someone who went through roast battle. Most roast battle comics are not respected because it's not really stand up. The roast battle skill bullying, and I think a lot of, not a lot, but a few people from Kill Tony, you do get a following from the show, and then they think they're headliners because they get headlining work because you go from an open micer with 200 followers, and then if get popular on the show, Rogan puts you on or whatever, you get like 50, 60,000 followers. Any comedy club in the country is going to book you, but then you got to do an hour, and doing an hour isn't just standing up there for an hour; it's being funny for an hour. So I mean, I met Hans Kim once. Everyone kept telling me he's like the Asian Earl, and he did do a really funny impression of me. But I mean, he seems successful. I don't know if he can do an hour, but I don't know anything about his act. So I won't talk shit just to talk shit. I don't know how much time he has, but he is an example of someone who was a relatively obscure comic, and then he's on Kill Tony every week, and I believe he got on Rogan. Uh, and obviously you get on Rogan. I don't know if the days of the next day you get 50, 60,000 followers, like Ally Mack uh, went on, and I mean, she had like maybe a couple hundred followers or whatever. And literally the next day she had 70,000 followers. I don't know if that happens anymore, but well, I mean, yeah, but the same, I'll talk more about roast battle in that regard. Comedy clubs just want to put a network logo on the flyer. So, with me, for example, I headline clubs. It's the Comedy Central logo for roast battle. It's Adult Swim and HBO for the Jellies. It's Netflix logo for Real Rob. Showtime logo for I'm Dying Up Here. So that's pretty impressive flyer when I'm headlining. All those networks, major shows. Um, well, I don't think that many people have blown up from it, to be honest with you. I mean, Kim Congdon, Ally Mack. Uh, I mean, I guess it depends on what you consider blowing up. Because most of those comics would not get on at potluck at the comedy store because it's you're being shown doing 1 minute of comedy. So even if you have a killer 1 minute set, and 1 minute's not a set, you get 50, 60,000 followers through the show. You're gonna do an hour now? Maybe some can, maybe Hans Kim can, I don't know. Maybe William Montgomery can, but oh, thank you, Earl sucks. Well, America's Got Talent, that's another show that like Taylor Williamson is a touring comic. So when he finished, I think second on the show, he had the chops to capitalize off that success or fame or whatever. It's like when I did Roast Battle, and I think when I did season one of Roast Battle, I ended up being on Comedy Central 5 nights and 6 days. So I was ready to do an hour on the road. I think at that point in time, I was doing comedy for 15 years. So I was prepared. But, these younger comics, I know some comics who, were maybe 3 or 4 years in, they didn't have 15 minutes, let alone an hour. So, but, they got headlining work, and, they did the club once, and then they were never asked back again. So, it's when you're not ready and you get opportunities, you really have to get lucky and hope you do well because, but, some comedy clubs don't care. If you're a draw, they'll rebook you. I mean, if you look at Brendan Schaub, what does he have? 800,000 followers on Instagram and Twitter. And, he's not the greatest comic by any stretch, but because one tweet or one Instagram story, hey, I'll be at, the Laugh Shop in Calgary this weekend, probably does very well for them. So just the way the business is. Like my social media, let me see how many followers I have on Twitter. I have, let's get the exact number, 11,818. Not a small amount. And I have about the same um, on Instagram. I think I have 11,700 or something. But, I don't think any comedy club is going, oh my God, we got to get this guy. But I will say that I think most of my comics are real. I think I went on that Social Blade, and on both Twitter and Instagram, I have 94% accuracy or of real followers. Most people probably fall in the 70% lower range. I think when I got caught buying or marketing downloads on Fiverr for the podcast, I was like, yeah, I want to do it the real way. And if it takes me a long time, it takes me a long time. So hopefully the streams I'm doing help, and I'm trying to I will be putting up a 45-minute set from the other night at the Comedy Store. As soon as I take one word out of it, it's a word that rhymes with bag. And I've been told I should take it out just because YouTube could strike my channel. And they don't really tell you why. Like on TikTok, I had two of my live TikToks cut and I was put on week suspension. But I guess the thing on TikTok is people troll you by reporting your live stream. I don't know who would do that, but they did it. So so on YouTube, I'm trying to do it by the book, and I think that I'm getting pretty good at an hour stream. I mean, last night was 3 hours almost. There's probably some down and um, slow moments. I mean, Patrick Melton can do 5 6 hour streams in his sleep, but I am not as proficient on here as he is. So I'm probably going to end the stream. I'm running out of steam on my stream, unless someone has any last minute questions. Um, I thank you guys for listening. And as always, I keep it real. So I will answer any question as truthfully as I can. And if you're in LA tomorrow night, or tonight, I should say, I don't think any one of the 8 people listening are, but I will be at the Comedy Store in the original room at 11:30, and that's it for my stand-up this week. I will be going to Full Gear Saturday night at the Kia Forum to see a stellar card. Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega, the Golden Jets, versus the Young Bucks, MJF against Jay White, Sting, Adam Copeland, aka Edge, and Darby Allin against Luchasaurus, Christian Cage, and Nick Wayne, among several other uh, good matchups. So I can't wait. If you could share this and retweet it or whatever Instagram story, it helps with the numbers. And I will probably do a live stream tomorrow after Dynamite. So that would be, I mean, I guess I could do a watch along, but that's not very fun for you guys to see me watching Dynamite. But I might try it just to see if the numbers bump up. Um, I'm really just throwing shit against the wall for these streams, and hopefully it gets popular enough where people want to come see me do stand up in LA and elsewhere. So this has been Earl Skakel, EARLSKAKEL, on all social media, one word: Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I'm most active right now on YouTube and Instagram, so if you're not a subscriber, please do so. Um, I do tweet out some jokes on Twitter, but Twitter seems to be kind of dying out in terms of relevance, or X. Thank you, Rebel. I have lived an interesting life. I was raised by parents that were unorthodox but effective. And, so I'm trying to tap into that more. And I will always am willing to talk about it on the streams and whatnot. But it's 1:30 now. Daddy is getting tired. I'm powering down for the evening. But I do thank you guys for listening. I'll see you tomorrow night after Dynamite. Or I might try to do a watch along the first half hour of Dynamite, see if there's any numbers. I might do a live stream of me playing AEW Fight Forever. I have not played it yet. I have not even loaded it into the PlayStation 5. So we'll see. Who knows what's going on with me? But I'll talk to you guys soon. Earl Skakel, over and out.